to keep this as short as possible. It's been a long and very, very stimulating day. So, a quick question is, when I say blockchain, what do you sort of, if you close your eyes and think of a visual for blockchain, what is it going to be, right? Odds are you'll see something very, very tech like this. Those who understand a little bit more of the tech would probably start talking about some of these certificates and then some of the more technical terms. Or maybe you're thinking that, okay, blockchain equals to cryptocurrency, and then you're seeing those lots and lots of servers in a server farm mining away, and you're thinking of that little coin and that B symbol that everyone's heard of. You're thinking of someone sitting in their mother's basement with this computer trying to make a lot of money. You're thinking of people becoming millionaires and billionaires overnight. But I can bet that you're not thinking of this visual. And I think that is what I'd like to kind of talk about and set some context on, is that I think one of the important aspects of innovation is that you have to understand sometimes it's not about creating something new. I think there's a very famous story. I have heard it many, many times. I hope it's accurate. Maybe today I'll find out it's not. About back in the days of the Cold War and the space race, when NASA sort of invested billions and billions of dollars trying to figure out how they can make a pen that works in space, because traditional ballpoint pens don't work because of zero gravity, and they were very proud of it. And then they found out that the Soviets used a pencil, right? So I think one very important aspect of innovation is understanding how things that are meant to be used for one thing can actually be used beautifully for another. So the blockchain that's created all kinds of headlines all over the world for cryptocurrency and all the other visuals that I just showed you is being used in two very, very interesting manners at Thermalife. And I'm going to talk to you very quickly about those two. The first is something called results-based financing. Now, in the corporate world, if you go to someone and say, hey, listen, I need $1 million because I want to grow my company and because I want to sell more products or build a new factory, they say, okay, great, we'll give it to you, but you'll get the $1 million. What are you going to give me in return? What is the output that you can guarantee? And there's always some sort of an output, and if you don't manage to guarantee it, you don't get the $1 million, or you are paying some sort of penalty. In the social sector, if I'm an organization that's done decently well, have a certain amount of credibility, I say I want $1 million and I'll do X. You get the $1 million and that's it, right? So why can we not have more accountability in the social sector? And it's not that easy, of course. It's a lot easier said than done, and that's where results-based financing comes in. Very, very simply put, it introduces a way for us to be able to verify if something has or hasn't happened. And one of the most interesting, one of the most interesting aspects of blockchain is that it's what is called a distributed ledger. Very simply put, without getting into too much technical detail, instead of storing all the information in one place, your information is actually stored in a whole bunch of places so that no one person has control over it. No one person has access to change it. So once something is entered into the ledger, it could be a contract, it could be a data, it could be value, whatever, it is essentially impossible to change. And that's where this comes in. So how can we use this to verify that something has happened? I'll give you a very simple example, right? This is something all of us who are familiar with the Thermalife life cycle are aware of, right? There's events for awareness, then our amazing DLEs will go and do home visits, have one-on-one sales, and then at some point they've managed to get someone convinced to buy a solar lamp or a cook stove or whatever it is, right? And that's where this sort of kicks in. Now, when I'm doing the billing, I can use geolocation, I can use timestamps, I can use some amount of computer vision as well, right? If I have picture 1 versus picture 2, I put all of this and validate it and put it into a smart contract. So I have now 100% guarantee that something has happened at a particular time a particular place has, if there's images, I can actually verify that visually, and it's in a distributed ledger. So now when I go to a funder and say that, look, I have managed to, now this is again, this is a very, very detailed slide, but broadly what I want you to look at is this, that I've made a sale, I've got an OTP, I've verified the person. So the person who I've sold to is real. The place I've sold at is real. The date and time is verified. I have machine learning and some amount of computer vision to verify that the product that I'm selling is actually the one that's been sold. That essentially means a certain level of automation, and for a funder, a guaranteed outcome. So not only am I saying that if you give me X amount of money, I will reach Y amount of people, I can say with confidence and then actually verify in real time that if you give me X amount of money, I can reach Y amount of people and get a quantifiable outcome at a certain level of accuracy. The next one is a little more linked to what we're doing today. So when we were working on some of the products, right, in for the brand Ananta, when Kim was kind of designing stuff, we realized something very interesting, that everyone's heard of fast fashion, everyone's heard of ethical fashion, everyone's heard of sustainable clothes. There are many brands that say that, oh, we make beautiful, sustainable clothes on organic t-shirts, etc., etc. There are even certificates available. There's something called GOTS, which if a garment has GOTS certification, it is one of the highest levels of environmental certification. We said, great, that's what we need to do. So we went to the GOTS website and tried to figure out what it means. And then we realized that GOTS, because it's so intense, actually looks at every single step of the process. And even if there's one thing that's off, you don't get certified. So effectively, we realized that we're living in a world that is moving towards, and consumers are asking for sustainability. But when it comes to actually looking at fashion or an ensemble, there's a sense of binary data. Either it's sustainable or it's not sustainable. What we wanted to do is we wanted to show that, look, we're trying, we've made distinct efforts, and what you had before versus what you have now, there's progress. And we realized there's no way to quantify it. And, all of these pieces that you see here, right? And I've just taken pictures from what's behind in the back part of the room. But everything that you see here, not one of them is something that I can say is 100% sustainable. Yet, I can actually tell you, and Shweta is going to come in with a lovely app that's been created that helps to measure it, but I can quantifiably tell you how much better they are than if I hadn't gotten involved and I'd gotten the same shirt made by a chicken curry artist or the same shirt made by a Banarasi weaver. And so we actually engaged with KPMG. We spent many, many days and months immersed with the process itself, understood every aspect, then started asking interesting questions like, okay, if I change this, what happens? Tried to measure it against water wastage, against carbon emissions, and trying to figure out how we can optimize it. And then all of that has been put together into a beautiful app that was created by the Dharma Life tech team. And this is sort of my cue to call Shweta in. She's the CTO at Dharma Life, and it's her and her team that have been going crazy to try and make this super simple. I've gone into an entirely complicated setup of blockchain and calculations and immersions. Ultimately, as a consumer, I don't care, right? As a consumer, if I see a t-shirt and it says it's 33% more sustainable than if I went and bought it from someone else, that's the only number that matters. So that's for that number, I'm going to call Shweta on.
Thank you, Vainateya. That was a super simple way to explain blockchain. I know blockchain as a technology is pretty confusing. I would say even I'm still learning, but it's also super helpful, and it's really useful if we know how to use it in the right way. And I think that presentation by Vainateya really explained it beautifully. So I welcome everybody as I'm really thrilled to talk about this innovation, this innovative tool that we are coming up with. It's a confluence of sustainability with technology, and it's a very exciting time to be at. Now imagine if in the world, whatever you purchase, any artwork that you purchase, you are aware of the impact it has on the environment. Today, as consumers, we are not really aware of what goes on behind the scenes, but imagine if we could. So this is the vision that has driven the Dharma Life team to come up with an index that can quantify uh, whatever the impact that every step of the way of any art form takes. So if we are all aware that whether it's a stitch, whether it's a dye, or any transportation mile that has taken place when we are producing an artwork, it impacts the environment in a certain way. It leaves a footprint. Uh, but there's no, like Vainateya said, there's no existing tool that can adequately quantify that impact. How much carbon footprint? What can I do to reduce it? Maybe we are not there yet 100%, but can I go 10%, 20%, 50%? How do I go ahead and quantify it? And that's where Dharma Life worked with KPMG to come up with a set of calculations, a set of formulas that we can use to find out what is the impact at every stage of the way for an art form. So we not only not only did we develop a tool, develop formulas, like Vainateya said, we added an extra thing to it. We added blockchain to it. So by adding our emission values, whatever we are calculating on the blockchain, we are providing an immutable proof as well of whatever process improvements that we have put in. So we are, by putting it on blockchain, it becomes a proof that cannot be that's unquestionable, or it's very transparent and it's immutable. How it works, we've tried to make it super simple. So an artisan can go log on to our tool. They can add their product. They can then see what kind of we are able to choose what is the art form for that product. They can see what are the life cycles involved, whether it's sourcing. So for a Madhubani painting, it would be a sourcing, painting, it would be finishing and packaging. Within each stage, they would get an option to input the values, whatever has happened, how many miles they have traveled, how much of chemicals they have used. So those emission sources will be available. They can input all of that data, and that data in the backend using the formulas is calculated, and then if we can see over here, it will also show you how much carbon you've generated and how much has been saved. For each art form, we have some benchmark numbers. We compare it against those numbers to tell you how much a particular product has saved. So when of course, then once a product is it goes through its processes, we keep pushing that data into a immutable database, and then it goes on to the distributed ledger from time to time. Every week or every month, we then keep pushing that data, whatever is ready, to a distributed ledger. How, as a consumer, how it benefits you, how you can make use of it. So every product, once it's on the blockchain, once it's finished, we print it with a QR code. Scan the QR code and you can see these reports out there. So what was the name of the product? What were the stages it went through? What were the proofs that, okay, if I'm claiming it took me 10 kilometers to source that product, what's the proof? So there will be receipts there. There will be photographs of the workers' workplace. We would also have artisans' names and their details, and you can see where, it will be geotagged. So you can see that, okay, if it's a Madhubani, it has been made say in Bihar, or if it's a chicken curry, then it has been made in Lucknow. So that kind of, there'll also be charts which will tell you which stage increased, or which stage gives you more emission, which stage gives you less emission. We are also introducing a white paper on this. It talks about the processes, it talks about the index, it talks about the benefits, and also the future of how we're going to use it. This paper will be available on a website, that's dharmalifelabs.org. The way forward is, of course, it is multifold. Artisans can track their emission. As a consumer, we can take informed decisions because we now know what is the impact our our purchases are making. Retail outlets can, of course, they can showcase with the products which come up with these numbers. And of course, the data can be fed back into the system for better policy making and better interventions that can be put in place. Thank you. It was a very, very engaging audience. Thank you.